The moment the cop's boot slammed into her side, everything around her seemed to freeze. Not just the bustling street, the murmuring crowd, or the flashing neon signs, but the very air thickened with shock. That one violent, hateful kick wasn't merely an act of brutality, it was an assault on her identity, her dignity, her very existence. The pain was sharp, but the humiliation cut deeper. She fell silently, her breath catching in a moment of disbelief as people gasped around her. The crowd's shock was palpable, voices hushed as if the world was waiting for what would come next. This was not just any woman being struck down. She was a force forged in fire, a symbol of resilience who had clawed her way up from the depths of systemic oppression. A self-made billionaire, a leader who had shattered glass ceilings that many said were unbreakable. She carried the weight of her people's history on her shoulders, the generations who faced prejudice, discrimination, and relentless barriers. She knew pain, but she also knew power. Years of struggle had taught her that survival wasn't enough. You had to fight back with more than fists. You needed vision, strategy, and unwavering strength. And so she rose, not despite the world's cruelty but because of it. Her empire was built on that unyielding will, a testament to the human spirit's refusal to be crushed. Yet, this moment, this vicious kick, was a brutal reminder of how much work remained. No one around her could anticipate the storm about to break. Behind the crowd, eyes unseen, someone watched. Not a mere bystander, but a man with influence beyond the streets and the police precincts. Someone whose power could rewrite the rules, who could bend the arc of justice toward truth. The irony was stark. Here lay a victim of racial hatred, and here stood a silent guardian who carried the potential to ignite a movement. But before that could happen, the immediate crisis demanded attention. The crowd surged closer, a mixture of outrage and confusion swelling. Phones whipped out, recording the incident that had shattered their sense of safety and fairness. The video began its relentless spread across social networks, a digital wildfire that no amount of suppression could contain. The world would see what she endured. Yet even in this moment of pain, she refused to crumble completely. A flicker of that legendary resilience stirred beneath the surface. She pressed her hands to the ground, fighting the sting of humiliation, grounding herself with the same grit that had powered her rise. The kick was meant to break her, but instead it ignited a fire within her and within every witness. She knew this was more than a single act of violence. It was a symptom of a system infected with bias, a culture that too often tolerated cruelty toward those who dared to defy stereotype. Her experience was not isolated. It was a chapter in a story written by countless others before her, and countless more after. This injustice was personal, yes, but also profoundly universal. The cop who had attacked her stood nearby, his face tight with a mixture of anger and fear. His authority was a mask, thin and fragile beneath the weight of public scrutiny. He expected compliance, expected silence, but what he hadn't counted on was her refusal to vanish into that silence. Her identity was too bold, her voice too powerful to be ignored. Around them, bystanders grappled with conflicting emotions. Some recoiled in horror, others debated whether to intervene. The divide was clear, between those who saw the act for what it was and those who tried to rationalize or dismiss it. This moment laid bare the fractures within society, revealing the raw fault lines of prejudice and complicity. But the story was just beginning. The ripples from this incident would soon surge beyond the immediate street corner, shaking institutions and challenging deeply embedded assumptions. The billionaire's journey had always been about transforming pain into progress, and now, in the face of blatant discrimination, she prepared to channel her influence into a force for systemic change. This wasn't a story of victimhood. It was a story of awakening. Her legacy was not just about wealth or status, it was about leadership that demanded accountability. It was about turning a moment of crisis into a catalyst for justice. She understood the weight of her role and embraced it, knowing that how she responded would inspire millions. There was a history behind that kick, A history of doors slammed, opportunities denied, voices silenced because of skin color. But there was also a future unfolding in this moment, one where resilience and courage could rewrite the narrative. She embodied that future, standing at the intersection of personal pain and collective power. The crowd's murmurs grew into chants, a rising tide of outrage and solidarity. People who had once felt powerless found their voices through her example. The street transformed from a place of violence into a stage for change. The images of that violent act were seared into the collective consciousness, demanding justice not only for her but for everyone who faced systemic oppression. And while the cop's action was meant to intimidate, it instead unveiled the fragility of his position. In the face of overwhelming evidence and public demand, his power began to unravel. This was a moment where the scales of justice tipped, pushed by the weight of human resilience and collective courage. She was helped to her feet, her pain overshadowed by the fire in her eyes. The moment was raw and real, a crucible where prejudice met unbreakable will. Her silence was gone, replaced by the roar of a woman who refused to be invisible. The ripple of that kick would grow into a wave of change, a force that no system built on discrimination could withstand. No one could have predicted how far this moment would reach. Not just in courts or city halls, but deep into the hearts of people everywhere who saw in her a reflection of their own struggles and hope. This violent act of hatred had sparked something far greater, an awakening, a movement, a transformation. And it all began with that kick. The moment the video went viral, the world shifted. There was no escaping it. The racist cop's violent kick broadcast across millions of screens, igniting a firestorm of outrage. Social media exploded with demands for justice. News outlets ran relentless coverage, dissecting every frame of the attack. The city, already tense with undercurrents of racial strife, erupted into protests and demonstrations that filled streets with chants for equality and accountability. This was not just a viral moment, it was a collective reckoning. The incident exposed a deeper sickness woven into the fabric of law enforcement and society at large, a system that too often permitted violence against marginalized communities without consequence. The billionaire woman, despite her immense wealth and influence, found herself at the heart of a cultural crisis that transcended personal pain. Her experience became a symbol of a systemic problem that demanded urgent attention. Her silence in those first hours was not weakness but calculation. Years of navigating prejudice had taught her the power of strategy. She was no stranger to being underestimated, dismissed, or written off. But this was different. The world was watching, waiting to see whether she would rise or retreat. She chose the former. She assembled her closest advisors, legal experts, and activists, turning her sprawling empire into a platform for change. Resources were mobilized quickly and with precision. Funds were allocated to support protests, legal challenges, and community programs. Her team connected with civil rights organizations, journalists committed to truth, and lawmakers willing to listen. The crisis was immense, but so was the opportunity to transform it into a movement for justice. Her leadership was not just about fighting one cop's racism, it was about dismantling the structures that allowed such acts to go unchecked. Public sentiment was raw and volatile. Many felt hope, seeing in her strength a beacon amid darkness. Others reacted with skepticism or outright hostility, clinging to denial or excuses. The divide was sharp, but it only underscored the necessity of her advocacy. This was a battle for hearts and minds as much as it was for policies and laws. The billionaire's stature lent weight to a conversation often ignored or minimized. Behind the scenes, pressure mounted on local government and law enforcement agencies. Calls for investigations, independent reviews, and accountability echoed louder each day. The cop was placed on administrative leave, but the question remained whether justice would truly be served. The public demanded more than suspension, they demanded transformation. The billionaire refused to settle for less. Her approach was unyielding yet inclusive. She knew that true change required bridging divides, not deepening them. Dialogue with allies from diverse backgrounds became central. She reached out to community leaders, religious figures, and even moderate voices within the police force willing to confront their institution's flaws. The goal was not revenge but reform, a systemic overhaul that could prevent future atrocities. The billionaire's own story became a powerful narrative tool. In speeches and interviews, she spoke candidly about the discrimination she faced, the resilience it forged within her, and the vision she held for a fairer world. Her words resonated far beyond her usual circles, inspiring individuals who had long felt powerless. She embodied a new model of leadership, one grounded in empathy, courage, and a relentless pursuit of justice. In the public square, protests grew from anger to organized action. Marches called for policy changes, better training for officers, and stronger community oversight. The billionaire donated to grassroots movements, amplifying voices often ignored by mainstream institutions. Her role shifted from victim to advocate, from symbol to strategist. This transformation galvanized a coalition united by a shared mission: equality under the law. Corporate America, watching the growing unrest, also felt pressure to respond. Many companies issued statements condemning racism and promising support for social justice initiatives. Some launched diversity and inclusion programs aimed at addressing systemic bias internally and externally. The billionaire's influence extended into these boardrooms, pushing for commitments that went beyond words. Her vision of inclusion challenged not only government but the very culture of business. Legal battles unfolded swiftly. The billionaire's legal team filed civil suits against the police department and the officer involved. Investigations into systemic misconduct were reopened. Courts became battlegrounds where the fight for accountability played out in painstaking detail. These efforts were grueling but necessary, a test of endurance and resolve that mirrored the broader struggle for equality. Media coverage amplified the story's impact, shining a light on similar incidents nationwide and even across planetary systems in the broader human diaspora. It became clear that discrimination was not confined to one city or one species. It was a universal challenge requiring universal vigilance. The billionaire's advocacy sparked conversations among alien diplomats, human rights councils, and interstellar organizations committed to justice. Despite the turmoil, she remained grounded. Her daily routine blended business, activism, and personal reflection. She understood that leadership in crisis demanded balance, strength tempered by compassion, ambition guided by humility. The emotional toll was heavy, but her resilience was legendary. Friends and family witnessed a woman transformed by adversity into a beacon of hope and a catalyst for change. In the eyes of many, she had become more than a billionaire. She was a hero, not the kind who wielded weapons or commanded armies, but one who used influence and intellect to fight a different kind of war. A war against hatred, ignorance, and injustice. Her leadership ignited hope that systems long resistant to change could be held accountable and reshaped by those with courage to demand better. The cultural shift was underway, though far from complete. Conversations about race, power, and privilege spilled into every corner of society. Educational institutions incorporated her story into curricula about civil rights and leadership. Media outlets debated the implications of systemic bias. Even skeptics could no longer deny the urgent need for transformation. In this crucible of crisis, a new vision of society emerged, one built on diversity, inclusion, and respect for all beings regardless of origin or color. The billionaire's unwavering advocacy served as the foundation for this evolving future. She was both the spark and the steady flame, guiding others through the storm toward a horizon where justice and equality were more than ideals, they were realities. This was no longer just her fight. It had become a collective movement fueled by shared pain and shared hope. Communities across the city and beyond stood in solidarity, demanding accountability and pushing for reform. The billionaire's voice echoed through their chants, speeches, and petitions, reminding everyone that transformation required courage, persistence, and unwavering commitment. The fallout from that violent kick was immense, but so was the opportunity it revealed. It was a turning point, a moment when the personal became political and the political became profoundly human. The billionaire's resilience, leadership, and vision would shape the course of history, not just in this city, but across worlds grappling with the same demons of prejudice and injustice. And in the heart of the storm, she prepared for the battle ahead, one where every step forward was a victory, every voice raised a triumph. The crisis was far from over, but so was humanity's strength. The billionaire's legal team worked relentlessly, knowing that true justice demanded more than outrage. It required undeniable evidence and relentless pressure on a system designed to protect its own. Every document, every witness statement, every angle of the incident was scrutinized with surgical precision. The cops' defense relied on familiar tactics: denials, shifting blame, and appeals to authority. But the video was irrefutable. Public opinion was a powerful weapon, and the billionaire wielded it expertly. Behind closed doors, negotiations and threats circled like predators. Police unions demanded protections for their own, politicians hesitated, afraid to alienate powerful constituencies. Yet, the billionaire's influence was formidable. She met with legislators, activists, and community leaders, forging alliances that transcended traditional divisions. Her approach was uncompromising but pragmatic, demanding accountability while building coalitions to enact lasting change. Simultaneously, grassroots movements gained momentum. What began as protests transformed into sustained campaigns. Community members organized town halls, educational workshops, and voter registration drives. The billionaire's funding gave these efforts stability, allowing leaders from marginalized groups to emerge and amplify their voices. This was a cultural revolution fueled by human resilience and the refusal to accept injustice as inevitable. Her personal journey mirrored the movement's trajectory. She faced threats and intimidation, subtle and overt, designed to undermine her resolve. Yet, each challenge only steeled her determination. The billionaire recognized that her wealth could not shield her from the harsh realities many face daily, but it could amplify the fight for equality. She became a mentor to younger activists, guiding them through the complex intersections of power, politics, and justice. Accountability slowly began to take root. Independent investigators uncovered a pattern of misconduct within the department, revealing a culture that tolerated abuse and protected offenders. The cop who kicked her was no isolated case but a symptom of systemic rot. These revelations galvanized public demand for reform, and the billionaire pressed harder for sweeping changes. Transparent disciplinary processes, civilian oversight boards, and comprehensive bias training. Her advocacy reached beyond city limit. The incident sparked debates in national and interstellar forums, where delegates discussed the universality of discrimination and the urgent need for cross-cultural solutions. She represented humanity's capacity for growth and leadership, demonstrating that strength lay not in domination but in empathy and justice. Her story inspired reforms on other planets, setting precedents that challenged entrenched powers. Corporate allies joined the cause more boldly. Companies instituted accountability measures, linking executive bonuses to diversity and inclusion outcomes. The billionaire leveraged these partnerships to promote economic empowerment for marginalized communities, investing in education, housing, and job creation. Her vision extended beyond punishment to transformation, building systems that uplifted rather than oppressed. Public dialogue evolved. Conversations that once skirted around uncomfortable truths now confronted them head-on. Families, schools, and workplaces grappled with the legacy of prejudice and the imperative for change. The billionaire's speeches became calls to action, urging everyone to acknowledge their role in shaping a fairer society. Her words emphasized collective responsibility, recognizing that cultural shifts depended on individual growth as much as institutional reform. Amid the progress, fractures appeared. Some factions accused her of exploiting the incident for personal gain, while others feared that rapid changes threatened public safety or tradition. The billionaire addressed these concerns candidly, promoting inclusion without division. She argued that true security came from justice and unity, not suppression or denial. Her leadership style blended firmness with compassion, inspiring even skeptics to reconsider their positions. In private moments, she reflected on the weight of legacy. The fight was not merely for herself or her generation, but for those who would come after. She understood that progress was a continuum, requiring vigilance and perseverance. Forgiveness was part of this journey, not as a dismissal of wrongdoing but as a means to heal and move forward. The billionaire's story was a testament to the power of transformation through resilience and empathy. Her mentorship extended beyond activism. She fostered dialogues between communities historically divided by race, class, and culture. By creating spaces for honest conversations, she nurtured understanding and dismantled fear. These efforts planted seeds for lasting unity, proving that inclusion was not an abstract ideal but a practical necessity for thriving societies. Legal victories punctuated the movement's arc. Courts upheld convictions of officers involved in misconduct, setting important precedents. New legislation passed, codifying reforms into law. These wins energized supporters and demonstrated that systemic change was achievable. Yet, the billionaire remained vigilant, aware that progress could be fragile and required constant advocacy. Her resilience inspired countless individuals to step forward, reclaiming power once denied to them. Stories of everyday heroism emerged. Teachers educating youth about justice, citizens holding local officials accountable, artists expressing the movement's spirit through music and literature. The billionaire's influence catalyzed this groundswell, proving that leadership could be both top-down and grassroots. The cultural shift was palpable. Media portrayals began to reflect greater diversity and complexity, challenging stereotypes and fostering empathy. Institutions re-evaluated policies to promote equity. Technology platforms took stronger stances against hate speech and misinformation. These changes signaled a society increasingly committed to dismantling prejudice and embracing inclusion. Yet, challenges persisted. Resistance took many forms, from subtle biases to overt hostility. The billionaire acknowledged that the path to equality was neither linear nor smooth. It demanded patience, courage, and unwavering dedication. Her role evolved from frontline advocate to strategist and mentor, ensuring the movement's sustainability. In this ongoing struggle, the billionaire embodied humanity's best qualities: strength in adversity, empathy in conflict, and leadership rooted in service. Her story was not just about confronting racism but about envisioning a future where diversity was celebrated, equality was guaranteed, and justice was a lived reality for all. The ripples of her advocacy extended far beyond the initial incident. New generations grew up inspired by her example, carrying forward the mantle of change. Communities once fractured found common ground. Institutions once resistant embraced transformation. The billionaire's legacy was not only one of wealth or power but of profound human resilience and the capacity to shape a better world. As the movement matured, it became clear that true heroism lay in persistent growth, learning from mistakes, embracing complexity, and remaining committed to the shared humanity that unites us all. The billionaire's journey was a beacon, illuminating the path toward a society where discrimination was not tolerated, and every individual's worth was recognized and honored. This was the essence of the HFY spirit: humanity's enduring strength, emotional resilience, and unexpected power to rise above oppression and injustice. In a universe often fraught with conflict and prejudice, this story was a testament to the transformative potential of human courage, compassion, and leadership. The crisis born from one violent act had become a catalyst for profound change. And at its heart stood a woman who refused to be defined by victimhood, choosing instead to lead with purpose, inspire with conviction, and fight for a future where equality was not a dream but a reality. The battle was far from over, but the course was set. Humanity was rising, not just to reclaim justice for one, but to secure dignity and respect for all. The Billionaire's story was a chapter in this greater saga, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, the light of human spirit could shine brightest. The fallout from the incident forced the police department into an unprecedented crisis of credibility. Public trust, once taken for granted, shattered under the weight of damning evidence and relentless media scrutiny. The Billionaire's unyielding pressure accelerated investigations, exposing corruption and systemic failures that extended far beyond one officer's violent act. Internal reviews revealed a deeply ingrained culture of silence and impunity, where misconduct was not just tolerated but often encouraged. Faced with mounting public outrage and undeniable proof, city officials could no longer shield the department. Forced resignations began, including several high-ranking officers who had long evaded accountability. These removals sent shockwaves through the force, signaling that the era of unchecked authority was ending. The Billionaire's influence was instrumental. Her strategic use of media and legal channels made it clear that no one was above scrutiny. This period of upheaval sparked fierce debate across the city and beyond. Critics warned of instability and crime surges, using fear to resist reforms. However, the Billionaire and her allies countered with data, emphasizing that true safety depended on trust and fairness in law enforcement. The narrative shifted from defensive preservation of power to proactive rebuilding of community relations. This pivot marked a crucial cultural shift. Policing would no longer be an unchallengeable institution but a public service accountable to all citizens. New leadership within the department was appointed, individuals with records of integrity and commitment to change. These leaders embraced transparency, inviting civilian oversight and instituting policies to prevent abuses. Body cameras became mandatory, with strict penalties for tampering or noncompliance. Training programs focused on de-escalation, cultural competency, and anti-bias education, ensuring officers understood the communities they serve. The Billionaire's ongoing advocacy provided essential funding and visibility, reinforcing these efforts. At the same time, community engagement flourished. Town halls, forums, and neighborhood councils fostered dialogue between residents and law enforcement. People who once feared the police began to see them as partners in safety, not oppressors. This transformation was hard-won and fragile, requiring continuous effort to maintain trust. The Billionaire's role extended beyond her wealth. She became a symbol of hope and a reminder that change was possible through courage and collaboration. Her story resonated widely, inspiring similar movements in other cities and even across planets with human colonies. The struggle against discrimination and abuse became a universal cause, reflecting shared values of justice and dignity. The Billionaire's leadership highlighted human resilience, the ability to confront harsh realities, learn from failures, and rebuild stronger institutions. This message transcended culture and species, demonstrating the uniquely human capacity for empathy and growth. Despite these advances, resistance persisted. Some officers and factions resisted reforms covertly, undermining new policies and perpetuating old behaviors. The Billionaire confronted these challenges head-on, supporting whistleblowers and demanding swift action against violations. Her insistence on accountability reminded everyone that progress required vigilance and refusal to accept complacency. This relentless pursuit of justice was both a personal mission and a broader call to action for society. The Billionaire's impact extended into political arenas as well. Elected officials who once avoided the issue found themselves compelled to address systemic inequities. Legislation passed to strengthen oversight, protect victims, and promote diversity within police ranks. The billionaire leveraged her influence to support candidates committed to reform, ensuring that change was not just a momentary reaction but a lasting priority. Her advocacy demonstrated the power of informed leadership to reshape policy and culture alike. Her mentorship network grew, connecting activists, community leaders, and reform-minded officers. These relationships fostered collaboration, sharing strategies and resources across different regions. The billionaire understood that systemic change was complex and multifaceted, requiring coordinated efforts at every level. By cultivating these alliances, she helped sustain momentum and build resilient infrastructures for justice and equity. The transformation was not merely institutional but deeply personal for many involved. Officers who embraced reform found renewed purpose and pride in their work, rediscovering the true meaning of service. Community members who had suffered discrimination experienced healing through acknowledgement and reparative actions. The billionaire's emphasis on empathy and forgiveness created spaces for reconciliation, where past wounds could begin to mend without erasing the imperative for accountability. Her advocacy also challenged broader societal attitude. Conversations about race, privilege, and power shifted from avoidance to engagement. Educational systems integrated lessons on bias and inclusion, equipping future generations with tools to foster equity. Media outlets expanded representation and tackled difficult topics with nuance. The billionaire's story was central to this cultural evolution, showing how leadership rooted in compassion and conviction could catalyze profound change. The billionaire herself remained a figure of relentless drive and humility. She recognized that her wealth and status were tools, not shields, and that true leadership demanded vulnerability and openness. Her willingness to listen, learn, and adapt endeared her to diverse communities, bridging divides often thought insurmountable. Through this approach, she embodied the very principles of inclusion and respect she championed. In the face of immense challenges, the billionaire's resilience never wavered. Each setback reinforced her commitment rather than diminishing it. Her capacity to transform personal trauma into collective strength was a testament to human endurance. She understood that change was a marathon, not a sprint, requiring sustained effort across time and generations. This long view shaped her strategy and inspired those around her to persevere. The legacy she was building extended beyond policy or headlines. It was woven into the fabric of society, visible in the renewed trust between communities and law enforcement, the expanded opportunities for marginalized groups, and the shift toward a more just and inclusive future. This legacy was a powerful reminder that even the darkest moments could seed hope and renewal. Her journey illustrated a fundamental HFY truth. Human beings possess an extraordinary capacity to face adversity with courage and compassion, transforming suffering into strength. The billionaire's story challenged assumptions about power and privilege, revealing that true influence comes from commitment to justice and service. Her leadership demonstrated how resilience and empathy could break cycles of oppression and inspire collective growth. In this ongoing struggle, every victory mattered. Small reforms changed minds, healed relationships. The billionaire celebrated these milestones not as endpoints but as steps forward, each one reinforcing the movement's foundation. Her vision was clear: a society where equality was not an aspiration but a reality, where diversity was embraced as a source of strength, and where justice was accessible to all. The changes unfolding were profound but unfinished. The billionaire knew that vigilance was essential to prevent regression. She continued to advocate, educate, and mentor, ensuring that progress was protected and deepened. Her story was a living testament to human potential, a beacon for those who believed that even the most entrenched systems could be transformed by courage, integrity, and collective will. The crisis ignited by a single act of violence had become a catalyst for an entire cultural and institutional rebirth. It revealed humanity's ability to confront its flaws honestly and to build a future grounded in fairness and respect. The Billionaire's leadership was central to this transformation, proving that resilience, empathy, and accountability were not just ideals but practical tools for change. Through her unwavering dedication, she helped forge a new path, one where discrimination was dismantled, inclusion was the norm, and justice was a shared commitment. This path was challenging and ongoing, but it was also filled with hope and possibility. The Billionaire's story was a powerful chapter in humanity's broader narrative of strength, growth, and the relentless pursuit of a better world. The ripple effects of the Billionaire's relentless push for reform extended far beyond her city. Across regions, her story became a blueprint for dismantling systemic discrimination and rebuilding trust between marginalized communities and law enforcement. She leveraged every platform at her disposal: corporate boardrooms, international forums, and grassroots organizations, to amplify the call for justice and equality. Her voice, once just one among many, emerged as a beacon of advocacy and transformation. Her approach was strategic, rooted in understanding that sustainable change required more than protest. It demanded concrete policy shifts and cultural realignment. She championed initiatives to increase diversity in recruitment and leadership within police forces, emphasizing that representation was essential for empathy and effective community policing. Through scholarships, training programs, and mentorship, she created pathways for underrepresented groups to enter and thrive in law enforcement careers, reshaping the institution from within. The Billionaire's advocacy also targeted the broader ecosystem, supporting systemic bias. She worked tirelessly to reform judicial processes that disproportionately penalized minority communities, pushing for sentencing reforms, restorative justice practices, and elimination of discriminatory profiling. By partnering with legal experts and activists, she helped draft legislation that promoted fairness and accountability. These changes began to shift not only how laws were applied but also how justice was perceived by those it served. Her influence sparked a cultural shift within corporations as well. Recognizing that economic power could accelerate social progress, she encouraged businesses to examine and correct internal biases. Diversity and inclusion programs were strengthened, not as mere formalities but as core components of organizational success. By funding initiatives that supported minority entrepreneurs and community development, she linked economic empowerment with social justice, creating a virtuous cycle of growth and opportunity. The Billionaire's efforts resonated deeply in education systems. She advocated for curricula that included honest discussions about history, prejudice, and human rights. Educational institutions responded by incorporating lessons on empathy, diversity, and social responsibility from early stages, nurturing generations prepared to challenge discrimination and foster inclusion. Her support of scholarships and leadership programs for marginalized youth opened doors that had long been closed, fueling a future generation of changemakers. Throughout her journey, she remained intimately connected to those most affected by systemic injustice. She listened to their stories, validated their experiences, and incorporated their voices into policy design and advocacy. This grassroots approach ensured that reforms were grounded in reality, addressing actual needs rather than abstract ideals. It also empowered communities, affirming their agency and resilience in shaping their own futures. The Billionaire's role as a mentor grew in significance. She nurtured emerging leaders across sectors: activists, politicians, educators, and law enforcement officers, imparting lessons drawn from her own experiences. Her mentorship emphasized the importance of integrity, courage, and empathy in leadership. Through these relationships, she cultivated a network of allies dedicated to carrying forward the mission of justice and equity, creating a lasting infrastructure for sustained social change. Her journey was not without setbacks. Opposition from entrenched interests, bureaucratic inertia, and societal resistance frequently tested her resolve. Yet, she met each challenge with unwavering determination and adaptability. Rather than retreating, she refined strategies, built broader coalitions, and amplified outreach. Her resilience inspired others to persist despite obstacles, reinforcing the collective momentum needed for transformation. The Billionaire's story embodied the power of redemption and accountability on both personal and institutional levels. She openly acknowledged the privileges she held and used them to uplift others rather than shield herself. Her public stance encouraged leaders and institutions to confront uncomfortable truths and take responsibility for past wrongs. This culture of accountability became a foundation for genuine healing and progress, moving beyond token gestures toward substantive change. Her emphasis on forgiveness was equally profound but nuanced. Forgiveness was not an erasure of injustice, but a courageous step toward reconciliation and growth. She modeled how victims and perpetrators could engage in dialogue, seek understanding, and work together to rebuild trust. This approach created pathways for communities to heal fractures without sacrificing the pursuit of justice, reflecting a uniquely human capacity for compassion amidst conflict. The Billionaire's leadership catalyzed shifts in societal attitudes about race, power, and equality. Media narratives evolved to highlight stories of resilience, collaboration, and positive change rather than division and conflict. Public discourse became more inclusive and informed, fostering empathy and solidarity across diverse groups. These cultural transformations reinforced institutional reforms, creating a supportive environment where equality could flourish. Her influence extended into technology and innovation sectors as well. She supported the development of tools designed to identify and mitigate bias in algorithms, policing, and hiring practices. By championing ethical technology use, she helped ensure that progress in these fields promoted fairness rather than perpetuated discrimination. This forward-thinking approach positioned human values at the center of technological advancement. The Billionaire's vision was comprehensive, recognizing that true equality required interconnected efforts across all facets of society. Economic, educational, legal, cultural, and technological reforms worked in concert, creating a robust framework for justice. Her holistic strategy underscored the complexity of systemic change and the necessity of sustained, multifaceted action. Her legacy grew through stories told by those she empowered. Individuals who once felt voiceless became advocates and leaders themselves, continuing the work with renewed vigor. Communities that had suffered under oppression found strength in solidarity and new opportunities to thrive. The Billionaire's impact was evident not just in policy changes but in the lives transformed and hope rekindled. Her narrative highlighted a fundamental HFY truth. Human beings possess extraordinary capacity to confront injustice with strength, compassion, and intelligence. It showcased how one person's determination could ignite collective action, reshaping society for the better. The Billionaire's story was a testament to human resilience, leadership, and the transformative power of empathy. This chapter in humanity's ongoing quest for justice emphasized growth and evolution rather than perfection. It acknowledged that progress involved confronting uncomfortable realities, making difficult choices, and embracing continuous learning. The Billionaire's journey exemplified how leadership grounded in humility and vision could inspire profound change. She remained deeply committed to mentorship and advocacy, understanding that sustaining progress depended on nurturing future leaders. Her work created ripple effects that extended far beyond immediate reforms, embedding values of equity and inclusion into the cultural DNA. This enduring impact reflected the uniquely human drive to build a better world for generations to come. Her story reinforced the principle that equality was not a finite achievement but a living, dynamic process requiring vigilance, courage, and cooperation. It inspired others to take up the mantle of leadership and advocacy, knowing that meaningful change was possible when people united around shared values. The Billionaire's example showed that even in the face of deeply rooted discrimination and systemic barriers, human potential could prevail. Her life became a blueprint for confronting oppression with dignity and strength, turning crisis into opportunity. This narrative uplifted human spirit and capability, central tenets of the HFY ethos. Ultimately, her journey illustrated that true power lay not in wealth or status but in commitment to justice, empathy, and collective well-being. Through relentless effort and compassionate leadership, she transformed personal trauma into a force for societal good, embodying the best of what it means to be human. Her story was a beacon of hope and a call to action, a reminder that human strength, resilience, and empathy are the greatest catalysts for positive transformation in any society. The billionaire's journey of transformation became a catalyst for broader societal awakening. What began as a personal ordeal turned into a movement challenging centuries of prejudice and systemic abuse. This awakening wasn't simply about legal reforms or corporate policies. It penetrated the core of societal consciousness, reshaping how people thought, spoke, and acted toward one another. It revealed the raw, undeniable truth. Humanity's strength lies not just in technology or wealth, but in its capacity to confront injustice head-on and to grow from adversity. Her advocacy ignited conversations that had long been suppressed, uncomfortable dialogues about race, privilege, and power dynamic. Families, communities, and institutions began examining the biases embedded within their traditions and operations. The billionaire's visibility gave courage to those who had suffered in silence, empowering them to voice their experiences and demand change. This collective reckoning was difficult and often painful, but it was necessary to dismantle the foundations of systemic discrimination. Her efforts extended beyond the courtroom and boardroom into the media landscape, where narratives about marginalized communities were often skewed or silenced. She funded independent journalism, amplifying stories that celebrated resilience, innovation, and leadership within these communities. These narratives countered stereotypes, humanized experiences, and built bridges of understanding across cultural divide. The media shift played a critical role in changing public perceptions and fostering empathy on a mass scale. The billionaire also prioritized healing and reconciliation as vital components of social transformation. Recognizing that justice without compassion can deepen wounds, she advocated for restorative justice programs that emphasized accountability coupled with empathy. Offenders and victims were brought together in structured dialogues aimed at mutual understanding and reparations, not just punishment. This approach redefined justice as a process of restoration and community rebuilding, rather than retribution alone. Education became a cornerstone of her vision. She championed curricula that integrated histories of oppression with stories of human triumph, resilience, and solidarity. This educational shift aimed to nurture critical thinking, empathy, and civic responsibility in young minds. Schools introduced programs encouraging students to engage in community service, dialogue, and leadership, cultivating a new generation committed to equality and inclusion. Through scholarships and mentorship, she ensured that opportunities reached those traditionally excluded. Her leadership style evolved to emphasize collective empowerment over individual heroism. She understood that sustainable change required widespread participation and shared ownership. By building coalitions across racial, economic, and ideological lines, she created a united front against systemic injustice. These alliances bridged gaps between activists, policymakers, business leaders, and everyday citizens, highlighting a shared commitment to a fairer society. Her role shifted from sole advocate to a facilitator of diverse voices and ideas. The billionaire's own growth was a testament to the human capacity for transformation. She moved beyond anger and pain to embody forgiveness and strategic patience. This didn't mean forgetting the wrongs or excusing injustice, but choosing to channel energy into constructive solutions rather than bitterness. Her journey modeled how trauma could be transformed into leadership, and how resilience could be a foundation for visionary change. Her example inspired countless others to re-examine their own biases and roles in perpetuating or combating discrimination. People from all walks of life began taking responsibility for their actions, whether through personal reflection, community activism, or professional conduct. This shift in mindset was crucial in breaking down systemic barriers, as institutional reforms require cultural acceptance and reinforcement. Technology and innovation played a critical role in this cultural transformation. The Billionaire supported the development and deployment of tools designed to detect and reduce bias, promote transparency, and facilitate communication across divide. AI systems were trained to identify discriminatory patterns, and data analytics informed more equitable policy decisions. These technologies, when guided by human values of fairness and empathy, became powerful allies in the fight against systemic prejudice. The Billionaire's story highlighted the importance of intersectionality, recognizing how different forms of discrimination overlap and compound. Her advocacy addressed not only race but also gender, class, and other social dimensions, promoting inclusivity in its fullest sense. She worked with diverse groups to ensure that reforms did not privilege one community at the expense of another, but instead lifted all voices toward equality. This inclusive approach also permeated corporate culture. Businesses reevaluated hiring, promotion, and workplace practices, committing to genuine diversity and inclusion rather than superficial compliance. Employee resource groups flourished, creating safe spaces for dialogue and support. These changes contributed to healthier work environments and demonstrated the economic benefits of embracing human diversity. Her emphasis on empathy extended into leadership development programs. Emerging leaders were trained not just in strategy and management but in emotional intelligence, active listening, and conflict resolution. This holistic leadership model fostered environments where collaboration thrived and diverse perspectives were valued. It prepared leaders to navigate complex social challenges with compassion and effectiveness. The Billionaire's advocacy also extended to mental health awareness, particularly within marginalized communities disproportionately affected by trauma and discrimination. She funded initiatives to destigmatize mental health struggles and provide accessible care. Recognizing that resilience is nurtured by psychological well-being, she integrated these services into broader social support systems, emphasizing holistic human empowerment. Her commitment to mentorship multiplied her impact exponentially. She cultivated networks of protégés who carried forward her vision with their unique talents and perspective. These relationships fostered mutual learning, encouragement, and accountability, creating a vibrant ecosystem of changemakers. Her mentorship underscored that leadership is both an individual journey and a communal responsibility. Throughout her journey, the Billionaire remained grounded in the core HFY principle. Humans possess an extraordinary ability to confront and overcome adversity through strength, creativity, and empathy. Her story demonstrated how personal pain, when met with courage and conviction, can ignite widespread transformation. It celebrated humanity's unique resilience and capacity to lead moral revolutions. Her legacy also underscored that equality is a continuous process, not a final destination. Each milestone achieved revealed new challenges and opportunities for growth. She advocated vigilance against complacency, encouraging communities to sustain their commitment to justice and inclusion. This dynamic understanding of progress kept the movement alive and responsive to changing realities. Her journey redefined power itself. True power, she showed, lies not in domination or wealth, but in the ability to uplift others, to inspire collective action, and to embody values of fairness and compassion. This redefinition challenged entrenched systems and opened possibilities for a more equitable future. The Billionaire's story became a source of inspiration worldwide, reminding people that individual courage combined with collective effort can dismantle even the most formidable barriers. It encouraged everyone to see themselves as agents of change, capable of shaping societies that honor human dignity and potential. Ultimately, her narrative was a testament to the indomitable human spirit. It illustrated how adversity can be transformed into opportunity, how justice can be pursued with empathy, and how leadership rooted in humility and vision can catalyze profound societal evolution. Her life's work echoed the enduring HFY message. Humanity's greatest strength is its capacity for growth, empathy, and resilience in the face of injustice. The final chapter of this story is not merely a conclusion but a powerful new beginning, a testament to humanity's relentless drive to reclaim dignity, justice, and hope in the face of overwhelming odds. The billionaire woman, once a victim of a brutal act fueled by ignorance and hatred, now stood as a symbol of transformation, embodying the values that define humanity's true strength. Her journey illuminated the path forward for millions, proving that resilience, courage, and compassion are the cornerstones of real power. Her influence extended far beyond the courtroom victories and public advocacy. It permeated the very fabric of society, inspiring individuals and institutions alike to reflect deeply on their own roles in perpetuating or dismantling systemic inequities. No longer was the conversation about isolated incidents or singular villains. It became a collective reckoning with entrenched prejudices and a commitment to sustained change. The billionaire's leadership was marked by an unyielding focus on accountability. She understood that acknowledging past wrongs, both personal and societal, was essential to healing. This accountability was not performative. It demanded honest reflection, genuine remorse, and tangible action from all stakeholders, from law enforcement agencies to corporate boards, from policymakers to everyday citizens. This insistence on responsibility created a foundation for trust and collaboration that had long been absent. Forgiveness played a crucial role in her narrative, not as an erasure of injustice but as a conscious choice to break cycles of bitterness and retaliation. Forgiveness, in her vision, was a courageous act of reclaiming agency, transforming pain into purpose and opening space for constructive dialogue. This transformative forgiveness fostered environments where opposing sides could engage in meaningful conversations, seeking common ground without diminishing the gravity of harm done. Her advocacy also prioritized inclusivity and diversity as essential ingredients for lasting progress. She championed policies and initiatives that elevated marginalized voices, ensuring that the solutions crafted reflected the complexities of lived experiences. This approach recognized that equality is multifaceted and that true inclusion demands honoring differences while uniting communities under shared human values. The billionaire's story underscored the importance of mentorship and generational legacy. She invested heavily in nurturing emerging leaders who could carry forward the torch of justice and empathy. These protégés came from diverse backgrounds, bringing fresh perspectives and innovative ideas to the ongoing struggle for equity. Through mentorship, she created a ripple effect, multiplying impact across sectors and geographies, inspiring a network of changemakers committed to transformative leadership. Her impact also catalyzed a cultural shift in how society perceives power and success. She challenged the notion that wealth and influence are ends in themselves, instead redefining them as tools for service and upliftment. This redefinition resonated widely, encouraging a new ethos of leadership rooted in humility, responsibility, and a profound commitment to human dignity. Technology and innovation played a vital supporting role in this cultural transformation. The billionaire championed ethical tech development, ensuring that emerging tools fostered transparency, reduced bias, and promoted accessibility. These technologies enhanced accountability mechanisms and empowered communities with data-driven insights, facilitating informed decision-making and equitable resource distribution. Her commitment to mental health and holistic well-being became a model for integrated social change. She highlighted how resilience is nurtured not just through external victories but also through inner healing. By destigmatizing mental health and expanding access to support services, she reinforced the message that true strength includes caring for the whole person. The billionaire's story served as a potent reminder that transformation is an ongoing process, demanding vigilance, adaptability, and sustained effort. She encouraged society to view justice not as a fixed destination but as a dynamic journey requiring continuous reflection and renewal. This mindset fostered resilience within movements and prevented backsliding into complacency or regression. Her narrative also emphasized the power of empathy as a unifying force. Empathy bridged divides, softened hardened hearts, and paved the way for cooperation across differences. It became a foundational value in leadership, education, and community building, nurturing environments where individuals felt seen, heard, and valued. The story culminated in a profound realization. Humanity's greatest asset is its capacity for growth and reinvention. The billionaire woman, once targeted by systemic hate, embodied this truth through her unwavering dedication to justice, equality, and compassion. Her legacy became a beacon of hope, illuminating the path for future generations to build societies where every person's worth is recognized and celebrated. In the end, this narrative is more than a recounting of one person's fight against injustice. It is a universal testament to the human spirit's capacity to transcend adversity. It calls upon each individual to take up the mantle of change, to embrace the responsibilities of leadership and empathy, and to participate actively in creating a world where fairness and respect are not aspirations but realities. Her story invites reflection on the power of resilience and the importance of confronting uncomfortable truth. It challenges complacency, urging action over silence, courage over fear, and solidarity over division. It asserts that no act of injustice is too small to address and no individual too powerless to make a difference. As this chapter closes, the future remains unwritten, filled with possibilities shaped by the choices made today. The billionaire's journey, rich with lessons of accountability, redemption, and advocacy, lays a foundation for ongoing transformation. It is a call to harness human potential to build inclusive communities grounded in respect, dignity, and shared humanity. Ultimately, this story affirms that humanity's greatest strength lies not in might or wealth, but in the ability to lead with heart, to stand firm against injustice, and to foster change that uplifts all. It is a legacy of hope, a blueprint for progress, and a celebration of what it means to be truly human.